in the truth. If you grew up in an evangelical religion, or maybe in a cult, or even just being part of some sort of a radical group, you may be familiar with this term, in the truth. We're in the truth. So I just want to discuss this and decode this phrase, because it's a very powerful phrase. And in my opinion, it's behind the control of a lot of people. One simple little phrase: we're in the truth. So, first of all, we got to ask ourselves, well, what is truth? When we're kids, we grow up. If you're raised from a principled background, or from a religious background, most likely you're taught as a child that you need to tell the truth. We're taught that the truth is more powerful than a lie. We're taught to stand on truth. We're taught that the truth will set us free. So when we begin to get a little bit older, we start to realize, though, that adults, groups, organizations, religions sometimes tell half-truths, or what could be referred to as the white lie. And the idea behind this is the thinking that sometimes, in order to protect the greater truth, you tell an untruth, a half-truth, or a white lie. And so, how do we see this in practice? You know, when you look at repetition, when we look at our words, what we say is so powerful. What we say is like the battery to what happens in our reality. So when we look at repetition, people who have mastered the art of language, the art of control, usually have mastered the art of repetition. And a great example of this is Donald Trump. Because oftentimes he'll tell half-truths, untruths, or just flat-out lies, but he will repeat these things over and over and over again enough times that what he's saying becomes truth. It becomes believable to those who follow along with what he's saying. And so organizations do the exact same thing. Big groups do the same thing. Religions do the same thing. They've mastered the art of language. And so by using a term like "we are in the truth," they're able to get away with half-truths, untruths, and flat-out lies, because they've pounded this term, "we're in the truth," "this is the truth," "the truth," "the truth," so many times that people are just conditioned by it. That's all they know from that repetition of this word, the truth. Now, I think one thing that's important to do when we look at this phrase, "we're in the truth," is pay attention to the word "the" in the phrase, "we're in the truth." Because there's a subtle difference there. If you say, "I'm in truth," the truth is the truth. The truth can stand the test of time. The truth can stand the test of scrutiny. Whereas when you say we're in the truth, just by adding that one little word "the," it changes the truth from being truth, universal truth that cannot be denied even when it's put through test, when tough questions are asked. It now turns into the truth. So it is actually somebody's version of truth, right? And we see the power of this statement, because a lot of times you will see people who maybe walk away from a certain path, be it spiritual, religious, just a group in general, and someone might say, "Well, you're leaving the truth." Or that person might even think in their head, "Hey, I'm leaving the truth." But it's important to realize they're leaving somebody's idea of truth. And maybe that person who says, "I've left the truth," is still convinced that what they're leaving is truth. However, if you analyze a group, an organization, a belief system, even a government, and you look at them and you say, hold on a minute. Actually, they're not telling truth. They're telling their version of truth, and hey, actually, they're telling some lies, or they're misleading, or they're being deceitful to some degree. So you observe this and you make the decision, I don't want to be part of that. And so you leave. The reality is, you are not leaving the truth. You're walking into truth. You're leaving somebody's ideas and exchanging those for truth, you see. So it's a very, very powerful statement. It's a very powerful statement. And you see, the thinking behind the statement, it correlates well to an episode of Seinfeld. For anybody who used to watch the sitcom Seinfeld, there's an episode where a character called George, who's known to be deceitful, is trying to teach the main character, Jerry, how to lie. And he says something to him very, very profound. He says, Jerry, remember, it's not a lie if you believe it. Very, very deep statement to make. And this is the thinking that's behind a phrase like, we're in the truth. Because the reality is that that belief is not a lie if you believe it. The belief has been pounded so hard into people that real truth has become diluted, and it's actually turned into belief, right? And so it's important to observe these types of statements, because they are the types of statements that are behind the control of a great many people. Because one little phrase like that, if you can convince somebody and pound that into somebody's head from childhood, this is the truth, we're in the truth, we're practicing the truth, you will create a major conflict within a person when they begin to observe untruth happening in the so-called truth. You've built in an inner conflict in that person by conditioning them over and over and over again with this phrase, we're in the truth. Mental tricks at the highest level. And when we look at truth in general, for me, in my opinion, I believe that when someone is just a flat out liar, I would prefer that than those who tell half truths. Because it's within these half truths where, in theory, perhaps an organization, group, whoever we're talking about here who's using this phrase, could be practicing truth to some degree. They may have truthful characteristics, they may do some truthful things, but at the end of the day, while being deceptive. So it's important to understand the sticking power of this phrase. And in my opinion, it's important to understand how true deception operates. Like that old phrase, the oldest trick that the devil ever played was convincing the world that he didn't exist. So when I look at truth, if we're to analyze, well, how do you know if this is the truth or not? Well, you ask the tough questions, because the truth is always honest. And if this particular organization or that particular group or this particular religion can't answer the tough questions, if they avoid being honest, then chances are they're not the truth at all. So these are my thoughts on this for today. Very powerful statement, still used by people who don't even feel like they're in a particular group anymore, yet still saying, I left the truth. And let's be aware of this statement, because this statement is indeed behind the control of a great deal of people. Because after all, who doesn't want to be in the truth? Well, if you really want to be in the truth, just be honest. Does that mean that we shouldn't have privacy, or some things shouldn't be kept discreet? Of course not. We should all have our own discreet and private information. But there's a difference between privacy and discretion and dishonesty. So this is what it is today from the Drinking Gourd. I hope everybody's staying blessed. Like, subscribe. Until next time, peace.